Okay, welcome back to Robra's Retrieval Practice channel. Today we are focusing on mind maps, the organisation and construction of mind maps. Okay, so let's get to it. So when and why would you use a mind map? Well, if you've got a whole topic you want to revise, you want to try and retrieve, then mind maps are perfect for concentrating an entire topic's worth of information in one place. You can display large amounts of information, but in a very logical and accessible way. And this is key to good retrieval practice. Okay, so they're really good for dealing with whole topics. Now, if you follow the instructions carefully and you follow the principles of mind mapping carefully, they will help you memorize and store large amounts of information really quickly and relatively easily. If you engage them properly, it completely avoids the rereading and the rewriting. And we know that to be a passive strategy. We don't want to be doing that. And there are lots of ways we can use mind maps to completely avoid that rereading and rewriting. The initial outlay of time can be longer than other retrieval practices, and this can put some people off. What I would urge you to understand is that mind maps save you an awful lot of time in the long term. You can revise entire topics in 10 or 15 minutes when you get good at mind mapping. So really, they are worth strongly considering. They are really good for people who learn by looking at images, pictorial learners. But I would strongly emphasize for everyone to try them and engage with mind maps. It's not just people who just like looking at images. They really are for everybody. Okay, but it might be for some reason that looking at large amounts of text isn't for you, and that's perfectly understandable. So mind maps are a logical thing to explore. Subject-wise, in terms of what subjects mind maps lend themselves to effectively, certainly geography, history, and RE and PE would be the subjects I'd strongly recommend mind maps for. Okay, so that's a brief introduction to when and why you would use a mind map. Okay, so let's go to the first phase of mind mapping, the organizational phase. Now, there is strong amount of evidence that the more time and effort one spends in logically and clearly organizing a mind map, the more effective that is. Okay, the easier it is for our brain to encode that information and retrieve it later on when it's needed. So this organizational phase is important, and it is going to use brain power to achieve it. Okay, so step number one, nice and easy, pick a topic. Pick a subject and pick a topic within that subject. Okay. Then before you start doing anything on your mind map, just read through your classroom notes and or your revision guide. Okay. Ideally, we're focusing on classroom exercise books, but for one reason or another, you might want a revision guide there as well. That is fine. Read through both. Read through that entire topic. Okay. Take your time with it. Then step two, use what you've read and combine it into 4 or 5 sections on your mind map. Okay. And the easiest way to do this is simply to look at the titles you used, your teacher asked you to write down in your exercise book for all of your lessons in that topic. Use those titles as those arms for your mind map. And you can combine titles if that makes sense to do so. We're aiming for about 4 or 5 in total. Okay. And be conscious of the fact that some subtopics, some sections of your mind map are going to require more space than others. Some subtopics are larger, some are smaller. That is fine. Plan that in to how you lay out your mind map. Okay. This kind of organizational decision making really matters in making sure your mind map is logical and clear and accessible ultimately. Okay. So make sure you factor that in. Step 3, decide on a color for each of those subsections, for each of those arms. Okay, clear and distinct colors for each section. Stop them blending into each other. They make them more discrete and more obvious, and therefore more memorable. So a color scheme does matter. Okay, that's the organizational phase. Let's move on to the construction phase of mind mapping. Okay, so at this stage, your mind map looks something like this. Okay, I've chosen coasts. I'm a geography teacher. I know there are 5 distinct sections to coast. I've given each a clear color scheme. Okay, right. So do's and don'ts of actual mind mapping. What should you have in your mind? What principles should you be following when you're constructing your mind map? Well, here they are. So first and foremost, the emphasis is on diagrams and drawings. to represent your processes, your concepts, your ideas. Okay, um, combined with keywords and annotations, not writing full sentences, not extended writing, a simple combination of drawings and diagrams with keywords and annotations. This is known as dual coding. In other words, it gives your brain two opportunities to latch onto a piece of information and encode it into your brain. You can have the diagram or the keyword or a combination of the two. Okay, it might be the keyword that sticks out to you and for some reason is memorable, or it might be the diagram that for some reason is memorable. Okay, either way, it doesn't matter. It gives your brain lots of opportunities to encode that information. Okay, so do practice that combination of keywords and diagrams. Now, make your drawings amusing and memorable. A bit more on this later, but the more amusing they are, the easier they are to memorize. Okay, emphasis on as little writing as possible, just keywords and annotations, and representing the information that's in your exercise book and in your revision guide in a new way, diagrammatically, pictorially. Okay, and ideally we're using an A3 sheet of paper. They are quite difficult mind maps to do on smaller bits of paper. Okay, so those are the do's of constructing your mind map. I'll leave you to pause the video if you want to read out the don'ts as well. Okay, right. So I've started drawing my mind map on coasts. So let me talk you through my thinking and the logical way that I've approached this. Okay. So let's start on the top corner here, coastal defences. I know one coastal defence I need to know is a sea wall. So I've drawn my cliff and I've drawn my sea wall in front of it. Okay, there's my small diagram. I know that that limits erosion. So I've written the keyword erosion with a cross next to it. I also know that sea walls limit access to the beach, so I've written the word access with a big cross next to it. I also know that I need to remember that sea walls don't look good. They're an eyesore. So I've drawn an eye that looks sore. Is it a particularly good drawing? No. Is it memorable? Yes. And that is the point. I also know that sea walls are expensive. So I've drawn $3 signs and colored them in green. Okay. So all of this together tells me everything I need to know about sea walls. I've not written a full sentence. I've put the emphasis on keywords and diagrams. Okay, let's look at shoreline management plans. Okay, so down here, I need to know why it's important to manage coastlines. So I've drawn a sun here to represent the fact that the temperature is increasing. There's my arrow with increasing numbers next to it. And I know that this results in more storms. There's my storm cloud with lightning and raindrops. Is it a good drawing? No. Is it memorable? Yes. Is the emphasis on diagrams and as few words as possible? Yes. Okay. Last example, I know that one type of erosion is called attrition. This is where rocks come into contact with each other and become rounded and smoothed as a result. So I've drawn two pebbles. I've written the keyword rounded next to each other, and I've drawn two speech bubbles of these pebbles challenging each other to a fight. Okay. Is that possibly a bit stupid? Yes. Is the drawing bad? Yes. Does any of that matter? No. It's memorable and it sticks to the principles of mind mapping, which is keywords and diagrams, dual coding. Okay. So there you go. Those are my examples that I've produced myself. This is what that mind map looked when it was completely done. There's all of coasts in one A3. Okay. Now, you might not be a geographer. This might not mean much to you. It really doesn't matter. It's the principles at work here that are important. Look at the emphasis on keywords, annotations, diagrams, color coding. Okay. You can see there's quite a lot of info there. Okay. A couple of other examples. There's a nice one from PE, really very strongly color coded. Great use of just keywords. I really like that one. And then this one is going back to geography, solving global warming. Look at that, really strong color coding, great use of keywords and annotations, lots of memorable diagrams that are going to make that really easy to encode when I'm trying to retrieve that and trying to solidify that in my long-term memory. Okay, last slide. So you've organized your mind map, you've constructed your mind map by drawing it out. We need to now engage in retrieval practice. Okay. So that process is probably taking you about an hour. And then you need to follow that up a day or 2 days later with your 20 to 30 minutes concentrated retrieval time. Okay. I'm releasing a second video, and that will be out shortly, about how to actually engage with your mind map in terms of retrieval practice. What are the strategies? What are the pitfalls? Okay. Thanks for watching. And that video will be up later. All the best.